I want to welcome everybody to Houston. Welcome to Commodity Classic. My name is Andrew Duff. I'm the General Manager at Groundwork BioAg. I want to share with you a little bit about our company, but more importantly, a really new frontier. That's the theme here at Commodity Classic, and I don't think it could be more fitting for our company and for what we have to talk to you about. You've probably heard lots of discussion around carbon credits, around biologicals. We are squarely positioned in those marketplaces, and we've got some new tools to talk to you about. So we look forward to meeting you. Hopefully you come by and say hello, and we can get into more details. We can share more data. We can share more information with you at that time. So real quick, we'll talk about some of the boring details, but our company was founded in 2016 based on a unique focus to develop a high production system for mycorrhizal fungi. Okay? Mycorrhizal fungi has been around since the world was created, but the ability to manufacture it at a high concentration and a low cost has never been done before. So out of the Volcani Center in Israel, which is the renowned research institute in Israel, they perfected that process. Okay, so we are unique in that we have the only manufacturing process to produce mycorrhizal fungi at a high concentration, but at a low cost. And why that's important is mycorrhiza has been used in specialty crops for a long time, but it's cost prohibitive to use in corn, soybeans, cotton, rice, our row crops, okay? So now we have addressed that, and we can open up those markets. We can make it applicable for farmers across the Midwest and across the Mid-South. Since 2016, we've become the world's largest manufacturer of a concentration at these levels. We deliver over 1 million propagules per acre. And when it comes to living organisms, even if you're not a scientist, you can imagine concentration matters. Okay, so the more soldiers you have, the more viable they are, the more robust and the better job that they're doing in the field. We've applied Rootella, our mycorrhizal fungi, on over 4.5 million acres since the company was started. So we have great experience, we've got some great results, and we'll share more with you about that. We're in all of the major markets, Brazil, the US, Canada, Asia, we're in specifically in India. So we've got a well-rounded business when it comes to that. We are based in Israel, as I said, and if you've not dealt with any companies that have come out of Israel, I'd encourage you to take a look. It's a real tech hub in Israel, much like Silicon Valley has been over the past couple of decades in the US. Israel is really applying a lot of resources to solve a lot of global challenges. So it's been really exciting to work with them. So what is mycorrhiza? Mycorrhizal fungi is a symbiotic relationship between plant roots and a fungal network in the ground. Okay? So it exists already in a healthy soil environment. But what's happened over the past 30 years is we have degraded that soil rhizosphere. So without a healthy fungal network, the plants are not able to tap into a system that previously existed. And so that results in a lot of stress and a lot of other negative things to our crops. With Rootella, we've got a formulation and a product that we can start restoring that fungal network. And that's what we're going to talk to you about. The benefits of a plant root system tapping into this fungal network include the ability to solubilize fertilizer that's already present in the soil, the ability to source moisture from beyond just that root zone. So it's incredibly powerful. You think about the forest in your area. We don't apply fertilizer to the forest. We don't apply insecticides or fungicides, and they survive and they thrive. Okay, so that's what we want to restore to our crop fields, but we have to be able to do it in a way that's economical and provides a return on investment for the grower. So under a microscope, this is what mycorrhiza look like. You have plant roots, and then you have your hyphae, you have root fragments, you have spores. All of these are what constitute a propagule. So this is the network that, again, in a healthy soil environment exists. When you dig up that fresh dirt that's had foliage and vegetation on it for multiple years, you can actually see the hyphae and that network in the soil that it's aggregated. So we're talking about really the fourth shelf, as we call it. Of all of the conferences we've been to over the past 3 years, the big focus is around the biological segment. So you have your seed, your chemical, and your fertilizer. Those are your traditional 3 shelves. Okay, but now we've emerged with this fourth shelf, which is biologicals, nature-based solutions. And that's what Rootella is. It's a biological. There are a lot of products in the marketplace today that are bacteria-based, okay? And there are some fantastic strains of bacteria. There are a lot of companies who are developing consortiums of bacteria that do amazing things, okay? But the mycorrhizal fungi we call the queen of biologicals because it has to be present for the bacteria to do its job, okay? But as with any biological, the performance is heavily impacted by the environment, okay? So you'll see statistics that say that biologicals only work 60% of the time. Well, they work 100% of the time, but the environment will give you different results. Right? We have formulations that make it really easy for the grower to apply. We have a liquid product on the far right. It goes out at 6 milliliters per acre. So that's 0.2 fluid ounces. It's an incredibly small amount. This one bottle will treat 62.5 acres. All right, the next product is Rootella F that I want to talk about. Rootella F is a planter box application. So it's the same process as mixing talc and graphite in the planter box. This is not a talc and graphite product. It doesn't replace your lubricant. All right, it goes out at 49 grams, basically one package, one pouch, treats 20 acres. So you've either got a planter box application, you've got a liquid application that can be used as a seed treatment by your dealer, or you can put it in furrow. The liquid can go in furrow with your starter fertilizer. If you've got some wild products you're putting out, then we can talk to you about compatibility and share with us what you're putting out, and we'll see if we've tested it and make sure that they're compatible. All right, so we've got these benefits from mycorrhizal fungi. Mycorrhiza has been researched for more than 50 years, and so we understand exactly the role that mycorrhiza play in the field and in our soils. We focused, since the company was started, on the above ground benefits related to yield increase. We've looked at fertilizer savings. Depending on soil environments, if you've got high phosphorus levels, we can unlock that phosphorus. And then just overall stress resilience. We've got a plant that is tapping into a network beyond just its own root zone. And the newest thing is the carbon yield, and that's what we'll share more information with you about in just a second. So we have our trials. To me, the yield and the performance above ground is table stakes. You have to do those trials. You have to show what kind of return on investment that a grower can see. We had 5 cooperators that did replicated trials. It was over 95 replications. In corn, we saw an 11.7 bushel increase, and in soybeans, we saw a 3 bushel increase. Now, I'll tell you, there were trials in Mississippi that we saw a 25 bushel increase in corn. So on the other side of this 11 bushels, we had cases where we saw, parity. All right, so that's, again, the nature of a biological in multiple environments. Average overall, though, pretty good. So what's new? As we study mycorrhizal fungi and read the research that's available publicly, you quickly understand that the main pathway for carbon from the atmosphere into the soil is through mycorrhizal fungi. All right? Through photosynthesis, the plant is exchanging carbon for nutrients. Okay? So it's a give and a take. The plant gives the mycorrhiza the carbon in exchange for nutrients. That's basically what's happening. And once the carbon goes into the mycorrhiza and the hyphae and the root fragments, it stores it permanently. And so as you begin to explore, if you're not already, these carbon credit opportunities, permanence is a huge factor. Okay? If you can prove permanence, if you can show that the carbon you're generating in a field is going to be there for over 100 years, then that's significantly more valuable than carbon that may be estimated based off a practice like cover crop or no-till. Okay? Those are good. If you're doing those practices, those are good for the environment. Hopefully they're good for your farm, and that's why you're doing it. So in 2023, Verra approved a new methodology that allows a grower to implement the addition of a soil amendment as a practice change and qualify for carbon credits from that practice change. So in 2023, Groundwork began focusing on becoming a project developer. We've had some great success in a short amount of time because our program is simple. The grower applies Rootella, they sequester carbon, and they earn carbon credits from the sale of those carbon credits. We have a turnkey solution that we've created at Groundwork, working under Verra's requirements to facilitate the creation, the validation, and actually selling credits on behalf of a grower. So as I mentioned here, Verra is the registry. You might be familiar with CAR and some others out there as well. Verra has transacted over 70% of the carbon credits that have been sold to date around the world. So Verra is the largest. The other registries have some great programs. My goal here today is to challenge you, if you're not looking at some sort of carbon credit program, to at least try something. While nobody can guarantee you, exactly what you're going to see on your farm, it's really helpful if you go ahead and start trying and seeing what you're able to generate there. We've got a number of partners that are critical to this overall ecosystem. You can see here that Groundwork is the project developer, but then we have partners when it comes to project development, when it comes to verification. We have to do soil sampling, which is part of the measure and remeasure. So we have partners that can facilitate that nationwide. As I mentioned before, in 2023, Verra approved this program late in May. And at that time, we had already engaged in discussions with growers in the Mid-South through Iowa and parts of the Western Corn Belt who were interested enough in trying and wanted to be part of our pilot program. So we collected field boundaries for roughly 20,000 acres. We went out and we soil sampled those to gather a baseline for those farms. They applied Rootella, and now we are coming up on the first sample after conducting the baseline to determine what the increase or the decrease was from the application of Rootella. So as you can see here, we've got pretty good diversity in geography, and we're seeing results very positive both north to south. Okay, we'd love to have a little more representation in the Eastern Corn Belt and the Southeast. So if you're from those areas, we'd love to talk to you about partnering on your farm to get some things going there. We also, crop does not matter. So we are able to enroll acres that are corn, soybeans, cotton, peanuts, potatoes, sugarcane, rice. So if you've got a diverse crop mix, that's okay too. The other thing to note is the cultivation requirements that have been a kind of a limiting factor for a lot of farms is not a disqualifier for this new methodology. So reduced tillage is required, but strict no-till is not required. Cover crop is not required. The only change practice that is required is the application of Rootella. So annually the grower applies Rootella. They commit to some type of reduced tillage, minimum tillage practice, but that varies from geography, and they're qualified. Our program is a 4-year commitment. The registry and the buyers of carbon credits require a 40-year commitment. But to make this practical for farmers, we've reduced it to a 4-year commitment. There's no penalty for getting out. If a farmer tries it for 2 years and decides, hey, I've not seen a return, then there's no penalty for you to get out in that scenario. The way we have discussed this is if you're making money, you won't want to get out, okay? If you're not making money, then it really doesn't hurt anybody if you do opt out of the program. We work only with landowners. So if you own the land or your family owns the land, those are the acres that we are enrolling right now. And we know that that's a limiting factor, but ultimately there's too much risk in signing a contract with someone that's a tenant and may not have control of that land from year to year. Okay, long-term leases are great, but we still are requiring the person that has title to that property, either through family or through another entity, is who we contract with. Okay, and I mentioned the other requirements that were part of it. Another thing is a control plot requirement. So for the life of the program, you have to maintain a set of acres that are untreated so that we have a comparison every year to show what the increase is where we've treated versus where we've left it untreated. In most cases, we can isolate a single field to be the control plot so that it's easy for the farmer. Regardless of crop rotation, as long as it's similar land management practices, you can use that as your control plot every year. So you think about it, you can't be comparing a high productivity acre that you're applying either irrigation, a lot of fertility to, against something that's basically neglected or a desert. Okay, it has to be similar land management practices, but that has not been an issue that we've run into thus far. So the onboarding process, we have automated a lot of this. We basically receive inputs from the farm. We do an eligibility check to make sure that there's not land that was just recently taken out of forest or some other crazy criteria. We run control plot planning to match the untreated to the treated. And then we go out and we basically sample. So we conduct a soil sample on every acre, the treated and the untreated. We have a stratification model that tells us exactly where we need to be sampling. And again, all of this is managed. This is our back office type piece of the equation. All right. When it comes into creating a new asset class, there's a lot of risk and uncertainty factors that weigh in, and so we address those as well. We conduct that baseline, and then we're basically off to the races, and the farmer farms. Okay, this is what it looks like in a timeline. We get a lot of questions about, well, when do I get paid? Our goal is to pay growers within 12 months. Okay, but reality is the first year it's going to be more like 18 months because we have to consider the 12-month window of doing the baseline and then the first sampling. After that first sampling, the following spring, it takes about 6 months for us to basically conduct the third-party audits and verify and register the credits and then ultimately sell them to a buyer. Okay, but essentially right now we're in the field enrollment stage. So we're collecting shape files from a grower, and then we get a field history for that farm to make sure the land management practices match up. All right, and then we go out and we do the soil sampling. Farmer applies Rootella. They harvest. We keep up with some minimal data, I would say, compared to some of the other programs that are out there. And then we basically quantify the following spring what the result was for the carbon. All right, and the carbon measurement is under Verra based on soil organic carbon and bulk density. And so bulk density sample is something that's not common when you're doing your fertility soil sampling. Bulk density sample requires a 2-foot probe 2 inches deep. So it's a significant time challenge for us, and it's costly. But we as a company pay that cost. All right, again, we issue credits. This is all under Verra, and then issue those first payments to growers the end of 2025 or first part of 2026. Excuse me. All right, I just have a few more slides. We'll kind of open it up to talk about some questions. Results from last year. These are post-harvest results, and so please hear me out. These are post-harvest results. These are not spring results. Remember, the methodology was just approved May 31st of 2023. We haven't even had a full year of the methodology being approved. But we conducted post-harvest soil samples to give us a comparison of treated versus untreated, okay? And from Iowa to Mississippi, from corn to soybeans to cotton, all right? And you can see those initial results here. We had some results that were even higher than these, but they're outliers, okay? They don't align with the overall statistics, and we can't, we're not showing those. But even at the post-harvest results were 11-ton increase in the treated versus the untreated. And I know what you're saying, that doesn't even sound real, okay? So number one, it's post-harvest. I don't know what's going to happen between now and the spring. We'll start sampling these fields again in the next 60 days, okay? But say we lose half of that carbon, you're still talking about 5 tons, okay? And that's significant. When you hear other carbon credit programs that are generating half a ton to a ton at the most, 5 tons is huge. If we can maintain that's fantastic. Everybody will sign up. But reality is there's other deductions from the risk and uncertainty that factor into this. So not to complicate things, that's what we're tackling on the back end to make sure that we can reward farmers for what they've done on their farm, but also take into consideration that we need even the poor performing farms to remain enrolled in the program because data is a critical factor. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here, and we're going to open it up for questions. But before I do, just know that this QR code, you can enroll. You can give us your information, begin the process for enrolling in a carbon program immediately. I want to introduce our team real quick. They'll be back here in the gray shirts. So we have Clayton and Thad and Ben, and Rick is somewhere. He stepped out. We are positioned across the Midwest. I live in the Mid-South. We'd love to come out and visit, whether you're an industry partner, a farmer. We look at this as an ecosystem, and we all need each other. So the more we learn, the more we leverage each person's expertise, the better. Okay? All right, I think we have just about 3 minutes for questions. Thad has a microphone. Any questions that are burning or want to challenge anything that we've talked about here?
Hi there. Is there a mechanism for if you have a decrease in CO2 for multiple years and then you have an increase? Let's say that 3 years. Is there? You have to pay them back? Do they average out? I just wonder if there's a mechanism that because obviously different years, different weather, et cetera.
Right. No, great question. So there will not be anything a grower owes for a loss of carbon. Again, we're creating a new asset class. So you think about this almost like an investment fund or a group for insurance. We need every grower to stay in the program. And so when we distribute the funds from a pool of, say, 100,000 acres, that's our goal this year, would be 100,000 acres. Every grower, we are targeting to receive some type of payment back. All right, I can't guarantee you what that is today. And I know there have been guarantees, from other programs, but today we're not there. But we are, the investment is $10 an acre for the grower, and our goal is that you'll at least break even with that, and everything else is upside. Okay, but you won't owe money back from a loss. Yep. Another question right here.
Do you see a loss of fungal bacteria in a flooded rice environment?
Do I see loss of fungal activity in a flooded rice environment? That's a great question. Rice, we have limited data in the U.S. on, but we have a lot of international data on rice. And so we'll be happy to share that with you. I don't know it off the top of my head, but we've seen the mycorrhiza perform very well in rice in Japan, in parts of Brazil. So, you in Arkansas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jonesboro?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm in South Haven.
Okay.
Yes?
What does the product cost per acre?
Product cost per acre is $10.20 per acre. And that's whether you use the liquid, the powder, it doesn't matter. Yes?
And you see when the yield differences in the growing crop that you're trying to produce, like corn or soybean.
I'm sorry, repeat.
Has there been any yield difference in the corn or soybean yield the crop grow?
So maybe you're talking about rotation and what's kind of optimal for mycorrhiza?
I'm asking if the product affects your corn or soybean yield.
Yeah, so I mean the yield data that we've seen is multiple environments of different rotations, corn on corn. Some have been a corn-soybean rotation, but on average a 6% yield increase across the board.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So at 6% on average at a $10 cost, ideally the grower is seeing a benefit from just the agronomic piece. The carbon is upside. And that's the way a lot of our initial growers in the pilot are looking at this thing.
I guess I would like to know what the method is you're using to measure the carbon. It's pretty hard to have this when we don't have a standard like we do for corn. There's so much, and soybeans there's so much. What is a pound of carbon?
Yeah, so the methodology is published by Verra. It's essentially a calculation of the soil organic carbon in the soil and the bulk density. So it's a quantified measurement per acre. Okay, so every field, and when we do these samples, so when we conduct the soil sample for the carbon, we also share that data back with the grower. So you'll see exactly what your fields are doing or not doing. Did that answer your question? I'm sorry. Did that not?
I was always told you had to do a laboratory test to measure carbon, and it was awfully expensive to do that. You're using two other factors. It's not the same.
Right, so we send this to the lab. This is done in a lab. So we have our soil sampling crew goes out and samples. They send it to a lab. We've used multiple labs across the U.S. Most of them are all capable of doing soil organic carbon and bulk density.
If you're already in a carbon program, take you out and you snack them, is that double dipping?
I need to know what carbon program you're talking about, whether it's
Like a Truterra or anything else?
Rootella, yeah. You can't enroll the same acre in a cover crop and a no-till program. All right, the registries, require that this, be kept. You've got records of what fields are enrolled, so you can't enroll in the same carbon credit. But there are other practice changes that you can do to stack on top of this program. But we just need to talk about it. I know a little bit about Truterra's program, but more than likely there's a way to stack them.
How would the application of these fungicides impact the
Application of late season fungicide. So essentially, your fungicides are targeting harmful fungus, right? This is a beneficial fungus. Typically, there's not any issues with applying that fungicide. Most of the common brands and active ingredients we know of in the marketplace, we've conducted tests with. Questions, other questions? All right, well, I hope that you are interested and would like to come by and talk to us because we learn from each other. We've got our booth on this postcard. If you don't want to come by and talk to us, or if you've got to run out, scan the QR code and give us your contact information. We'll follow up with you. You can start the process right here. All right, thank you all. Have a great show. Enjoy Houston.